sunlight gets in, heat doesn't get out. We have known for over 100 years that that's not how a greenhouse works. In fact, a greenhouse works because you don't allow for energy exchange by evaporating water or by moving air, which is two other ways in which you can cool the landscape. I mean, if you come in, for example, on a hot summer afternoon, you will remain hot if you're not allowed to perspire and you're not allowed to turn on a fan to blow cool air across your body. Okay, so that's why a greenhouse works. That having been said, the fact that we have an atmosphere makes the Earth about 30 degrees Celsius warmer than it would be if we didn't have an atmosphere. Therefore, if we didn't have an atmosphere, or if we had an atmosphere that had gases that didn't absorb heat energy, then the Earth would be uninhabitably cold. So a greenhouse effect is really a good phenomenon, and it's why we have life on Earth. However, what we're really talking about when we talk about global warming is an enhanced greenhouse effect. The idea that more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and other of these energy-absorbing gases, heat-absorbing gases, getting in the atmosphere will increase the temperature above that natural greenhouse effect. And again, one of the things you got to remember is the most important greenhouse gas is not carbon dioxide, it's not methane, it's water vapor. Essentially, 85% of the signal that you see in terms of the warming of the Earth's surface is due to water vapor and not carbon dioxide. And so water vapor is the key ingredient, and it becomes a very complicating factor in climate, because as you're aware, when water vapor condenses, it forms clouds. Clouds, therefore, are a two-edged sword. At night, when you have lots of cloud cover, the temperature remains high because it doesn't allow that energy to escape the space. But in the daytime, lots of cloud cover keeps it cool because they reflect off solar radiation and light from the sun. So clouds are really a wild card in the system because how they actually behave relative to temperature changes, how they might change or respond to various climate changes is not well understood and very difficult to predict. And because it's the most important greenhouse gas, it therefore is the important variable in the Earth's atmosphere and not carbon dioxide.
Stunning. I've never heard this. I've never heard anything about water vapor. I've never heard anything about the greenhouse effect that's even being referred to, how it's actually helping. I never heard anything about the clouds and that the clouds are the wild card in climate. Very interesting.
See, this is an introductory climate course. If you took any introductory climate course, that's the kind of thing you get. The problem is that's not the take-home message people want you to hear in the media. And what they really want to hear is that the world is becoming a very bad place, and unless you give me all your power to control carbon dioxide emissions, life as we know it is going to cease to exist. And I can tell you that's not the case.
Is there anything else you two would like to discuss that is not being talked about that's very important to you?
I myself cannot think of anything extra except to try to keep emphasizing that it is close to being insane to try to keep insisting that this carbon dioxide changes will actually lead to all this disaster in the future that doomsayers and all these politicians and profiteers are trying to tell us. The fact is that even how the greenhouse effect of the CO2 would work, it's totally and completely tied to how the water and the cloud would do. And indeed, that one cannot separate that also easily according to what they are saying. So this is why it's ever so important to try to emphasize the fundamental aspect of how the greenhouse effect would actually work, rather than in which the cartoon character that they've been trying to create for us to try to indoctrinate school kids on this issue, where they try to say that, well, if you add all this carbon dioxide, you're going to be able to, make more rain, you're going to make less rain, you're going to make some places warmer, some places cooler. I mean, it is a very pseudo-scientific proposition to try to suggest to people about, everything is causing everything. I mean, that's just not a very good proposition. And then here they are even worse. They are trying to propose that carbon dioxide will cause just about everything, whereas something else, especially like the sun, would not be able to affect it. This is really very strange. I mean, I would like to end by just saying one more thing about comparing between, let's say, the role of the sun and the role of carbon dioxide in the Earth climate system. Because this topic has been so widely sold to the public that, they keep saying that, well, it's only the CO2 and it's not the sun that can do it. They say, well, they have already proven that the sun could not be affecting the Earth climate system. Since when? Let me now start by giving you a very simple analogy. Imagine that the Earth climate system is this football player from the New England Patriots quarterback by the name of Tom Brady. I hope some of the audience know that. Imagine the Earth climate system is Tom Brady. And they try to suggest that the sun, which I will give you the analogy, which is a big gorilla drinking some just water, okay, because he's on diet. This big gorilla that is actually not 800 pounds, by the way. Typical weight of gorilla is at least 1,000 to 2,000 pounds. So this big gorilla, they say that this big gorilla, because they're drinking water, is not able to push Tom Brady. Whereas they say CO2 is a guy, guess who that is? It will be Willie Soon, of course. I picked Willie Soon because Willie Soon has been very greedy. He's been eating a lot of hamburgers, gaining a lot of weight. This is where they say that, it is the relative difference that is more important. I say no, it's the absolute level that is very important. They say Willie Soon has been eating a lot of hamburgers, gaining a lot of weight. So therefore, he should be able to push this Tom Brady easily. So this is the kind of very fairly accurate analogy in terms of trying to compare the relative strength of basically the Earth system, the CO2, and the sun itself. So the audience should be able to decide who is more powerful, because they say that the sun, the typical way of which they try to dismiss the sun is that they say, well, we know the sun is a gorilla, but he's drinking water, he's on diet. And you, Willie Soon, on the other hand, you're eating a lot of hamburger, you're gaining a lot of weight, so you should be able to push Tom Brady. But ultimately, Tom Brady is still a big guy compared to Willie Soon, by the way. So instead of Willie Soon pushing Tom Brady, it is more of a case of Tom Brady pushing Willie Soon itself. This is why in cases in which we have data, for example, we know that when we emit all this fossil fuel carbon dioxide, not all of that really ended up in the atmosphere. In fact, how much that is remained in the atmosphere is completely controlled by the climate system itself, like how much rainfall you have, meaning how much trees were growing or not tree growing.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I heard just last week that carbon is heavier than air.
Yes, it is, right? I mean, it has CO2. So O2 is O2, but C, there's extra C. But then, so that's true, because N2 is also lighter. That's true.
Sorry, not to have taken you off.
Right.
Put it now in the true metaphoric context between the sun, CO2, and us causing a situation to go out of whack. What you're both really saying is that it's impossible, given the number of variables, for humans to be causing a problem with the atmosphere, with weather, and with climate, because the entire climate system is a astronomical and physics context. It's not just what's here, it's what's happening in space, it's what's happening with the sun. And the sun cannot be taken out of the critical equation because it's an integral part of climate.
I would put it slightly differently. I would just simply say that to try to think of the climate system that is completely predominant in their case, dominated by how much carbon dioxide amount we have in there, I would say it's just crazy, completely wrong in that sense. That is the part that we know, okay? The part that we do not know is exactly what are the key factors that will be important, depend on the timing, of course, the conditioning of the history of the Earth climate system. And at any given time, I would strongly suggest that, we will always have that season. So whatever it does in the season is extremely important, because guess what? No two summers are the same. No two winters are the same. So the way I would think about the Earth system is indeed to think of it freely that way, that is in the most natural way, where the sun is that changing light bulb, the light sources that is constantly changing. Even though it changes a very little, like he's on diet, drinking water, okay, that gorilla, he still would be able to push Tom Brady up or down, actually. Tom Brady, on the other hand, would not be able to push him, right? Because Tom Brady could do all he wants. He can eat all kinds of hamburger. He still would not be able to reach 2,000 pounds to be able to push back the sun. So that fact we know for sure. And then to try to suggest that the sun would not be at all important because he's drinking water on diet compared to, let's say, Willie Soon, who's eating hamburger, which is that CO2, then I think it's just wrong in the total sense. Whereas, the question is not about unknown. There are a lot of things that we do not understand yet for sure. But there are also a few things that we do